Good morning. The time tells us it's 9 a.m. On Wednesday, November 9th, 2011, and this meeting of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority is now in session. Ms. Rowe, any public comments?
No, sir.
Item 3, adoption of the minutes from the CRRMA board meeting of October 12th, 2011. Everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Changes, updates, additions, deletions?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Item 4, update and presentation from the America's Gateway Builders on the Loop 375 at I-10 America's Interchange Project. And I believe we have Mr. Willie Kramer here today with America's Gateway Builders to give us a update. Willie, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Board members, Mr. Tellis. Is it up? Oh.
That's the wrong PowerPoint. Could we have the other one?
You can give us that one if you'd like to, Willie, kind of give us a quick update on that area.
After driving down 10, we should be working on 10. Okay.
Willie, could you state your name for the record before?
My name is Willie Kramer, Project Manager at America Gateway Builders. How do I change this? There you go. Status. Okay, currently, we have 75 AGB employees working on the site, composed of 27 indirect and 48 direct employees working out in the field. The GEC has 12 employees and TxDOT has 7 employees working on the site. I might say in addition to this, this is AGB employees, does not include our subcontractors. So for the past at least 45 days, we've probably had an additional 15 employees with Tri-State, HBEC, and Redcliffe also working on the project. To date, we have worked over 176,000 work hours with no recordable accidents. As far as design, the project design for the project was completed in October last month. We do have one glitch with a signing a marking plan because of a medical emergency. The engineer of record just needs to sign those plans. But other than that, the design is complete. Utilities designs continue, but we anticipate to have those completed and approved by the end of this month. I have allergies, so I'm having a hard time speaking here. On the utilities, the master agreements, we still have level 3 and MCI as outstanding. We're very close to getting those agreed upon and resolved, and I really think that'll happen within the next couple of weeks. As far as utility relocations, El Paso Electric Distribution has one remaining crossing over Loop 375 north of I-10, and El Paso Electric Transmission has one remaining crossing over Loop 375 right north of I-10 as well. The El Paso Water Sanitary Sewer is complete. El Paso Water is approximately 85 complete. We've done the major one, which was over 3,400 linear feet of a 20-inch water main on the eastbound frontage road. AT&T began in October setting some vaults along the eastbound frontage road. The permit was approved last week, and Tri-State will begin installing the conduits for the fiber optic cable. However, this work, installing the fiber optic cable as well as the splicing, will continue in the next year just because of outages to service customers when they can make the splicing. Texas Gas is scheduled to begin this month. They really have 2 small relocations, and that work should be completed hopefully by the end of this month as well. The communications, which is comprised of MCI, Trans-Telco, McLeod, and Level 3, we have them scheduled this month, and hopefully we can maintain that schedule. The TxDOT fiber optic ITS duct banks are completed, and installation of their cable is scheduled to begin next week. Should be done within 30 days. As far as construction, kind of broke it up in disciplines. But the drainage work began in September on the westbound frontage road, installing the cross drains underneath the frontage road, which was RCP pipe, curb inlets, and then we're working on ditches right now. We also began on the eastbound frontage road, essentially the same thing, cross drains, inlets, and boxes, but they are being installed on a new alignment, not underneath the existing road. Pavement, we began in September on the westbound frontage road, doing some widening between the ramps and the private street that comes in there, well east of down Haskins. And we also completed about half of the new southbound westbound ramp with the asphalt pavement. We also installed a temporary asphalt road on the eastbound frontage road right at Alza Drive to allow us to divert traffic and work on Alza Drive intersection without impeding traffic. Drill shaft foundations, H. Beck has installed 32 of 114 drill shafts. They're scheduled to mobilize a second drill rig on November 28th, right after Thanksgiving. The columns, we've installed 14 of 93, and we added a second column crew on October 31st last week. The caps, we just began cap construction. We've installed 2 of the 73, and we'll be adding a second cap early next year as well. As far as the bridge decks, the steel girders that'll cross I-10, the precast concrete beams that make up the approaches on all the direct connectors, and the precast concrete deck panels are all currently in production, and installation of these items were scheduled to begin in January and February of next year.
Where are those items produced?
The steel girders are produced in San Angelo, Texas, Hirschfield. The precast concrete beams are being produced in San Marcos by Heldenfeld, and the precast concrete deck panels are somewhere between the Bronxville's and San Marcos with Austin Prestress.
All right, thank you.
The retaining walls, they're currently in production. They're being produced by Tricon, which is outside of Houston, Texas, and we'll begin retaining wall installation January 2012. There's just some photographs. The top one is a 9x5 box culvert for cross drain 4, which will be under the eastbound frontage road. This is the new alignment of the eastbound frontage road. And the lower photograph is installing the asphalt pavement on the new southbound westbound ramp. Next photograph on the top is just an example of the earthwork we've been doing, milling the old eastbound frontage road and bringing in the embankment to raise the grade on the eastbound frontage road. And then we have the photograph of the columns. All the columns that have been constructed are for the southbound westbound direct connect and the west approach. Then the caps, these 2 caps are between the westbound main lanes and the westbound frontage road. I have an example of an inverted T cap with 1 column, and then the one on the right is what we call a straddle cap. That's what I have. Have any questions?
Congratulations on the no recordable accidents. That's quite a feat with so many different people working in so many different areas out there.
Thank you. We work hard on that. It's everyone's job, and it takes everyone to accomplish that.
And I think I saw on the last schedule that AGB is right on schedule for the original substantial completion date. Is that correct, Willie?
Yes, sir.
So I think you've all put on some additional crews here just recently, and it sounds like there's additional crews coming on top of even those. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, from the last update that y'all had in August, I just noticed from the numbers that we've doubled our direct workforce, and we'll continue to add crews to make that scheduled date.
So this is where the project, it's been fun all along, but this is where it starts to get really fun, I'm sure, huh?
Yes, it's fun every day. Every day.
Any questions from the board? Willie, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
all your hard work to make this project a success.
Thank you.
Item 5, update and presentation from the Texas Department of Transportation on the Loop 375 Woodrow Bean Trans Mountain Northeast Main Lines Expansion Project and the Loop 375 Joe Battle at FM 659 Zaragoza Project.
Mr. Chair, good morning. Board members, Eduardo Calvo with TxDOT here, your local office here in El Paso. Mr. Tejas requested that we prepare and give you a very brief update on these two projects. We're going to talk about Loop 375 Northeast, the construction of the main lanes up there, and also the Loop 375 at Zaragoza Interchange, where we're going to be building two direct connectors. Starting with the first one, Loop 375 Northeast, in this map you see in red on the top the location. Again, this is roughly between Dyer, which is Business 54 on the eastern termini of the project, and going westbound crosses US 54, would go under US 54, and the project terminates about a mile up the mountain on going towards the west. The scope of the work is to build the 4 main lanes between these two points, and the main lanes would include grade separated intersections at Kenworthy, Rush, and Alcan, and then also the underpass at US 54. It also includes some work on the frontage roads. All of the work is going to be done within existing right-of-way. The only right-of-way issues that we have, shouldn't say issues, but the only right-of-way things that need to be done is a relocation of a well with the El Paso Water Utilities, the PSB. The original funding that was identified in the 2008 CMP totaled about $80 million. It was a combination of TxDOT Category 2 and a Transportation Reinvestment Zone, SIB combination with the CRRMA, and which also triggered the need for a pass-through toll agreement for $5.7 million. The contract, the construction contract, was awarded by the Texas Transportation Commission back in April. The construction contract was for about $49.5 million. And even though the contract was awarded back in April, but there was a delay to the start of construction to allow for all of the utility work and right-of-way acquisition, the well, and all these activities to be finalized. Technically, the construction would start in January of 12, but we're hoping to start sooner, as soon as all of these utility and relocation and right-of-way issues are resolved. As I said, the main right-of-way issue is the water utility well, the pump station that is right in the middle of our right-of-way. And in terms of utilities, you see those 5 utilities that are where we have to do some relocation work. So that's a very brief update of where we are. You've probably seen a lot of activity out there, although the only work that is going on right now is directly related to utility relocation. But there's a lot of activity out there. The contractor has mobilized, and you see a lot of movement out there. So we're also very excited to see activity out there.
What is the anticipated substantial completion date for this project, Mr. Calvo?
We're looking at approximately between 24 and 30 months after the notice to proceed for construction is issued. So we're looking at about 2.5 to 3 years.
Got it. And it's our understanding, and looking at the numbers here, that the SIB and TRG funds are not going to be necessary for this project. Is that correct? That's
the intent right now, and this is one of the things that we need to finalize between TxDOT, the CRRMA, and the City of El Paso. This is the original agreement that was part of the CMP, the Comprehensive Mobility Plan, but it looks like we will not be requiring any TRZ SIB funds. But that's something that we need. We're still working and finalizing the agreements. We hope to bring you those agreements or the news that we're not going to need those agreements very soon.
Well, congratulations on getting this project designed, completed, let, and beginning of construction in kind of record time. So really quite a feat for TxDOT and the whole team over there. So congratulations.
Thank you. It was a lot of hard work, but it also generated a lot of white hairs and not only on me, but a lot of our TxDOT colleagues.
Well, as we're trying to complete the outer loop, this is a key portion of it, and being able to come right off of Trans Mountain and get right on these inner lanes to complete this without all the stoplights and stop signs, it's going to be a great project. Any questions from the board on this particular project? Ms. Calvo, thank you very much.
Okay, let me just show you some renderings on what on this project. Here you see on the lower part, that's the first overpass, Alcan, and as you move towards the mountain, you see the Rushing in Kenworthy, and towards the back, the US 54 underpass. And this one is just a rendering of what the underpass at US 54 would look like. Okay, so then moving on to the next project, the Loop 375 Joe Battle at Zaragoza interchange. On this map, you see the red dot on the east side of El Paso. Again, here the scope is to build 2 direct connectors that would connect northbound Loop 375 with northbound Zaragoza, or let's say northeast direction, and then the opposite direct connector in the southwest Zaragoza to south Loop 375. Again, the CMP funding, Comprehensive Mobility Plan funding that was identified originally for this project had $20 million of Transportation Reinvestment Zone fronted by a CIV loan, $5 million of TxDOT Category 2, and then a $7 million pass-through component that would be paid out by TxDOT from Category 2 funds. This project, similar to the other one, the construction contract was awarded back in April of 2011 for about $24.85 million. It also had a delay in construction. I believe it's February, but we're working really hard. This one has a lot more complications in terms of right-of-way and utilities. It's a very tight corridor, and we've got a bunch of utilities out there. So we're hoping to start sooner than February, the actual construction. But you know, there's a lot of complicated issues here with utilities. Again, on this one, in terms of the agreements, this one is a little bit different. We will need some of the TRZ SIB money to complete the project. And again, we are in the process of finalizing those agreements that hopefully will come to this board very soon. But on this one, we really need to speed up the execution of the agreements because, again, we're very close to starting construction and we need to get all the funding package together. Again, this is another rendering of what the direct connectors would look like. This is, if you're standing on Zaragoza looking towards the south, you see the 2 direct connectors that would connect Zaragoza to the main lanes of Loop 375 Joe Battle. And that's pretty much all I have for these 2.
I was just out there recently with kind of the existing infrastructure that's there, and this can't come soon enough in regards to alleviating some of those problems out there, which are pretty substantial. Who are the 2 contractors that are going to be constructing this one at Zaragoza and the Trans Mountain?
For Zaragoza, it's blanking out of the name, Horner. It's Horner. It's the same contractor that is currently finishing the I-10 at Schuster project in front of UTEP. And for Loop 375 Northeast, it's J.D. Abrams.
Super. Any questions on these 2 projects? Ms. Calvo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a 3rd amendment to the project development agreement, I-10 Loop 375 interchange, originally dated November 19th, 2009, with the Texas Department of Transportation for the design of an additional direct connector for Loop 375 at I-10, the Americas Interchange Project. Mr. Tejas?
Raymond Tejas, Executive Director. I figure with this item, let's start with a little bit of backup. As you know, the RMA has an existing project development agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation in order to develop the Americas Interchange project. When that was originally signed, the intent was that the RMA would design and construct 4 direct connectors. As you know, one of the first, actually the first amendment to that original project development agreement actually removed a construction, if if I remember correctly, it was a construction maintenance agreement that TxDOT decided later on they did not require of us. So that was removed through the First Amendment. The Second Amendment then went back, and if you recall, back when we were in the procurement process for the Americas interchange, the original bids came in much higher than the total estimated or the total budget for this project. So we actually had to go back through a best and final offer process whereby we removed one of the direct connectors. So the Second Amendment to the project development agreement then removed that additional direct connector and removed some additional work as well. So as we've discussed recently, the region has identified some Proposition 14 version 2 bond funds that are available for the development and construction of a fourth direct connector to the Americas interchange. So what you see before you here in this Third Amendment is actually the reintroduction of the design aspects for this next direct connector. So TxDOT is tasking the RMA with the design work necessary for this fourth direct connector. And that's what you see before you today. I should mention as well that as with all projects that the RMA undertakes, we enter into normally an agreement with TxDOT for the development of the project, and then the next item on our agenda is the execution of a work authorization between the RMA and our general engineering consultant, and that's the agreement that actually tasks the engineers with doing the work necessary. And we have that same situation here with item number 7, which is the work authorization. I would mention, as we're discussing the work authorization, that in discussions with TxDOT this morning, they requested, and we think it's a good idea within this Third Amendment to actually reference and incorporate the scope of services that was developed and used in the work authorization, which is item number 7. So what I'm asking of you for item number 6 is authority to execute the amendment as provided to you with the note that there will be several minor revisions, including the reference and incorporation of the work of the scope of work as developed in item number 7. I hope that was clear. I'm not sure that I made that as clear as I could have, but I hope that was.
Just for clarification for the board, a little different than how the I-10 project, the project that AGB is doing for us. We are just doing the design of this additional direct connector. TxDOT at that point will go through and let that design and manage the construction as opposed to how we have been involved with the 3 direct connectors currently being managed and built by AGB. Correct, Mr. Tejas?
That's correct.
So with that, if is there any questions?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute work authorization number 10 with Atkins North America, Inc. to provide various services for the design of an additional direct connector for the Loop 375 at I-10 America's Interchange. And this basically directly dovetails into item 6, where now we are giving the authorization to Atkins to proceed with the design of what we call the additional direct connector, which is going to be the total of 4, but it's actually the 5th direct connector, if I've stated that clearly. So, Mr. Tejas?
That's correct. I think you've covered it all, actually. I'm going to leave it at that. Unless, subject to your questions, that really is exactly what we're doing here.
I think the total cost is about $1.7 million for the design. That will, of this particular direct connector, that's included in your backup. Pete Jacobs is here from Atkins. If you had any questions, Mike Rudd, also our designer that is going to be doing the design, is here. So, subject to your questions. If not, is there a move to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item 7 is approved. Item 8, discussion and action on a board resolution adopting the CRRMA's 2012 investment policy. Mr. Tejas?
As you know, each year there are certain statutes that require entities like ours to adopt an investment policy. However, because of the nature of the relationship that this RMA has with the city of El Paso, namely the city is the fiscal agent of the RMA and handles all of the funds for the RMA, with the exception, of course, of certain bond issuances that are handled by our trustees. Essentially what we do is we wait for the city of El Paso to adopt their annual investment policy, and then we adopt theirs because they, again, are our fiscal agent and they handle all of our funds for us. So what you see before you here is the investment policy that the city of El Paso recently adopted. I believe it was, if it wasn't last Tuesday, it was the Tuesday prior. So subject to your questions, that is what we're doing today. And the reason, I should mention, this comes up usually each year. The reason why this does not go through the Finance Committee is that this is simply an adoption of the city's investment policy. Now, if the RMA were actually adopting its own investment policy and manage its own funds, then certainly we would run it through the Finance Committee. However, that's the reason why we don't run it through the Finance Committee, should you be curious about that. I would mention also the resolution that actually adopts the city's investment policy makes certain tweaks of the policy, and those tweaks are pursuant to the request of our bond counsel. The resolution and the investment policy had been forwarded to the bond counsel and the financial advisors, so I'm comfortable recommending approval of the investment policy for this coming fiscal year.
Questions?
So there's no opportunity to independently review the investment policy? We either adopt what the city's investment policy is, or what are the options?
Well, the options, I guess it turns on what we're interested in doing. If the RMA wants to handle its own finances, then we would actually adopt our own policy, develop it from scratch, and go from there. However, because the city handles all of our funds for us, and that includes the investment of our funds, we simply adopt their policy. Now, if we're interested in making additional tweaks, as we've done under the resolution, we can certainly do that.
I think that's what my question is, adopt the city policy, but if there's something in there that we want to independently review or take another direction, would we have an opportunity to do that?
Yes, and we certainly could do that. And by way of example, that's how the tweaks arose in the original resolution. So if we're interested in do that, we can certainly do that. But to date, the financial advisor has not provided, aside from those items explicitly listed within the resolution, they haven't identified any areas where we would need to vary from the city's investment policy. But and if you'd like, we can certainly take it to the Finance Committee for review.
Are these consistent with our previous
Yes, ma'am.
adjustments and tweaks, as you call them?
Yes, and in fact,
to the policy?
they're virtually identical from last year. Yes, ma'am.
Could it be possible to get a copy of these things? Obviously, they haven't seen them before. That might help.
I believe they have.
Policies, cities, or whomever?
I
don't have.
They're
I don't
included
have
in the
it here my
backup.
packet.
Yeah, it was sent out.
Yes. Did you send them out earlier?
Yes, sir. They were included in the email on, I believe it was Saturday. But again, should there be any questions, we can certainly refer this to the Finance Committee and spend a little more time.
What I'm not seeing here is how the investments have actually performed, kind of the details. This is the investment policy, but what are we actually investing in, and how have those?
We can provide that. We've provided that to the Finance Committee, I think, once in the past. We need to probably resurrect that issue and provide it to the Finance Committee, which, of course, everyone's invited to if you're interested. But we can do that as well. I'll make a note of that.
Mr. Marcus, what are your thoughts?
I'm in full agreement with the adoption of the policy as it stands. And other than the tweaks that are outlined in the front of the resolution, I don't see any reason not to do this.
I'm in agreement with Mr. Marcus. I mean, we can take a look at potentially postponing this and giving the members more time if that's what you'd like. It's really up to the board.
Did somebody say that wasn't included in your package?
Well, he emailed it to us.
Okay, because it is here.
Yeah, I don't have that.
No, I don't think we need to postpone it. I just had those questions.
Okay. Subject to that, is there a motion to approve the discussion and action on a board resolution adopting the CRRMA's 2012 investment policy?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, discussion and action on the Executive Director's Report. A, Loop 375 Cesar Chavez Border Highway Managed Lanes Project Agreements. B, the I-10 Corridor Aesthetic Improvement Project Update. C, the fiscal year 11 annual audit and 2011 annual report. And D, the CRRMA procurement policy update. Mr. Tejas?
I have, this will be very brief. It had been some time since we had talked about some of these, so I thought it was important to bring them up. The first one, actually, we talked about last month. If you recall, There were several items on last month's agenda related to the Cesar Chavez project. Unfortunately, we've not made a lot of headway with our discussions with TxDOT to finalize those documents, so I don't have final signed copies for you yet. But we're continuing to negotiate, and hopefully we can resolve that very soon. So by way of update, unfortunately, we don't have signed agreements yet, but we're on our way. Item B, which is the aesthetic improvement project, as you may recall, the I-10 aesthetic project contemplated the creation of a committee that was to guide the work of the artist and the engineers that are developing the project. That committee met recently, and as a side note, Ms. Holguin is a member of that committee on behalf of the RMA board, and I'm also a member, and we attended that meeting. The meeting was in order for the artist to provide her final conceptual designs for the improvements along I-10, and for the committee to identify which interchange, if 1, 2, 3, 4, or otherwise, what improvements the committee was directing the artist and the engineers to begin pursuing. At the conclusion of the meeting, and after some debate, the committee decided to pursue the airway interchange and spend the majority of the $10 million total project funds on that interchange, with any remaining funds being directed to improvements in the downtown area towards the downtown bridges and also the lights for those downtown bridges. So that's the breakdown that the committee directed of the artist and the engineer. The next step for this project is actually for the artist and the city and, of course, the RMA to make a presentation to the El Paso MPO at their December meeting outlining what I've just shared with you, and also to solicit input from the MPO board members. The next step after that will actually be a presentation to the public with essentially like an open house sort of a meeting where the public can come and hear what the proposed improvements are, the conceptual improvements are, and gather solicit information or direction and comments from the public that can then be incorporated by the artist and the engineers into the final design. At that point, then the artists and the engineers will develop the final design, and the RMA will actually go out and hire a construction group to build the improvements. So in a nutshell, that's where we are and that's where we're heading.
There's also, I believe, a master plan going forward as part of this process, with kind of identifying other areas and trying to come up with some sort of consistency in design that we can kind of spread across various interchanges, either existing construction or new construction. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, on our website, we have the original master plan that was developed by the artists, which looked at the entire corridor, identified each of the individual interchanges, and developed a very general concept for improvement for each of those interchanges. That master plan has been updated, and once we have the final from the artist, then I'll post that on the website and let you all know of that as well. And that from that master plan, that's how you develop that continuity in terms of the next improvement, and say if additional funds are found in 5 years from now, at least the improvements that will be made will be in line with this master plan. So you have that continuity along the entire corridor.
And
unfortunately, to make an impact, all of it has to be spent in one area. It was, from what I understand, not really able to kind of spread that out over several areas and really make an impact. Ms. Holguin probably knows better since she's attended several of those.
Well, just a comment about our current projects that are under construction. Are any of those can be modified to incorporate any of these aesthetic, since we're in that process, or are we too far down the road in order to incorporate any of those?
Well, and actually, I should have been a little more clear. The scope of the artist's conceptual design plan was from Loop 375 all the way out to Loop 375, so from I-10. However, the committee directed that she focus between Executive and Hawkins. So the projects that we're looking at are not actually included within this corridor. So the concepts that she's developing are really an I-10 specific and in fact, Executive to Hawkins specific design.
Do we have what the aesthetic proposals look like to show what airways could potentially look like in downtown?
We have the
website to see them.
They are on the website. I can provide. I'll see if I can't pull those pages out and share, and I'll send those to the board. We do have the conceptual design plans from the artist that I can share.
I think part of the debate was since the money really needs to be invested in one location and we want the impact to not be spread out but really focus on one area, is what were the one or two or maybe three most prominent areas that people would really notice? And the debate was between Airway and downtown, and as Raymond said, we're really looking at both. And then, for example, Executive Center could come online with the redevelopment of the Asarco land. So kind of timing where the investment goes. But it's really, the artist has done a fabulous job of really looking at the unique characteristics of each interchange and taking into consideration the neighborhoods and all kinds of individual markers in the neighborhoods so that each location is unique. And I would encourage everybody to take a look at what she's proposed on the website.
I would mention, too, I'd like to bring this up because I think it's an important point. One of the requirements that we included in this project was that the artist include local artists so that the local artists could develop this expertise. And one of the main tasks of the locals, which they refer to as the apprentices for this project, one of their main tasks is to walk the neighborhoods, take photos of the neighborhoods that are directly impacted by the interchanges. And those photos and all of that, all of those areas are then really defining what the concepts are for the interchange. So there's a lot of local impact towards the conceptual designs that have been developed to date.
Great. Any other questions? One last comment. You take a look at Americas, which I think is a beautiful piece of infrastructure, great design. You take a look at the spur, which has tremendous design without a whole lot of cost that was attributed to that. Just a very unique and striking project. And then you go and next time you pass under Airways, take a look, and it's concrete and some faded paint and some chipping paint, and it's just so very much in need of a facelift. And there's a lot of traffic and a lot of visitors, and really kind of an overall impression of what happens or what this city's about. So I'm looking forward to see the final project. Mr. Tess, item C, fiscal year 11 annual audit and 2011 annual report.
This is just a very brief update, just to let you know that we are finalizing the negotiations with the audit team, and we will have them on board likely within the next week or so that they can begin this audit for us. So that's underway. And the annual report, as you know, we're required by law to also do an annual report. We have the Lopez Marketing Group, which is a local firm, handle that for us. And we had a meeting. Unfortunately, I had to cancel that one, but we have another meeting scheduled very soon so that we can begin the annual report. So those will be underway. If you have any comments in terms of what we did last year, what you'd like to see this year, please let me know, and we'll incorporate those as we develop the annual report. And lastly, item D, the RMA procurement policy update. I wanted to mention, just so you know what we're up to, and this, in fact, will be going to one of the committees before too long. As we came out of the last legislative session, there were various pieces of legislation that now require us to revise our procurement policies in terms of what RMAs can do as far as design build projects and that sort of thing. And in fact, the addition of the design build finance option for us. So as we are incorporating those revisions, and I've been working with our legal team out of Austin, which has developed the original policies and is helping to revise our existing policies to incorporate the new revisions. We will also be looking at the procurement policies that we utilize to hire designers, as we discussed last month as well. So it's a good time that we roll in all of these potential revisions into our procurement policy. And again, this will be aired out in one of our upcoming committee meetings. So that'll be happening soon. So that's really just an update for you. So subject to your questions, that's all I have for you today.
Any other questions for Mr. Tess?
I'd like to point out regarding the procurement policy, there's an article in today's El Paso Times that's relevant to that talks about the fact that and this is something we discussed at the last meeting, in talking about contracts, bidding, and so forth on services, that you are now allowed to give some preference to local versus out-of-town bidders on price. And even though that wasn't really the issue for us, it was something we discussed, and it's a good article if you haven't read it yet.
And to that point, we also have our local attorneys developing those parameters within which we can operate. And we're really, the way that they're looking at it is in terms of professional services, which of course deals with engineers and CPAs and that sort of thing. And then you have construction and other procurements that are non-quote professional, as defined by that specific law. So they're running those parameters for us so that when we open up our procurement policies, we can make sure that we're operating within the statutes, but also looking at locals as well.
Who are the attorneys?
The locals, Norman Gordon and his firm,
Okay.
Mounts Green.
We're using him now?
Yes, sir. Yes, we brought him on, and in fact, actually, each year through the evaluation process, you see him. But
I know him, yeah, we use that for that, but we're using him for this too?
yes, sir. In fact, we use him when we can, when it's a local issue, when it doesn't deal specifically with a transportation, very narrow transportation issue. We try to use locals.
The other area, too, is looking at how these RFPs are actually set up, making sure that if very specific experience is required, it's included, but if it's not very specific experience, that's not necessary to be able to satisfactory or provide a quality output, that we're setting these up. And so Mr. Tejas and I will discuss that. I'm sure that'll come through the committees here and then come to the board when we finally finish up the procurement policy to make sure that we're asking for the appropriate level of experience required to give us the work product that we're looking for.
The governance committee is the one that drew up the original.
Yes, sir. And that's the committee it'll be routed through.
Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
We get the time for the record.
It is 10:41.